Imagine yourself in an immense arena, one of the grandest battle theaters of ancient times, the Roman Coliseum. The crowd waits in silence, their anticipation palpable, and with each sound of the cheering masses, you feel the tension in the air. At the center of this magnificence stands a lion, a giant of power and courage, preparing for a battle that will forever mark his story. This lion, named Magnus, was not like the others. He was a living legend, a symbol of strength who had won the hearts of the Roman people, feared even by the fiercest predators of the time. He had been challenged by many, but defeated them all, a true battle machine who, with each confrontation, displayed an impressive bravery. Magnus's first great battle that became etched in history was against one of Rome's most formidable enemies, the European brown bear. These bears were known for their immense strength, and facing them in the arena was not for the faint-hearted. They were huge, heavy, and extremely aggressive. The audience had no idea what to expect, but Magnus did not hesitate. As soon as the gate to the arena opened, he charged with surprising speed for his size, his sharp claws ready to strike. The bear tried to attack, but Magnus used his cunning and agility to dodge. With a swift move, he struck the bear's hind legs, forcing it to lose balance. The battle was intense, with the bear roaring and attempting to retaliate, but Magnus, with his sharp claws and powerful teeth, was unbeatable. Within minutes, the bear was defeated, and the crowd erupted in applause. This victory catapulted Magnus to fame. He was no longer just an ordinary lion, but the champion of the arena, challenged by all and always with the same result, victory. But Magnus's fate was far from sealed, and the next battle he would face would be even more difficult. The battle with the tigers, defying death. Magnus, the lion of the Coliseum, continued to defy expectations in a series of battles that pitted him against some of the most feared beasts. After conquering the bears and bulls, his fame began to spread throughout the empire. The great Coliseum was alive with fervent crowds who gathered to witness Magnus's unbeatable strength. But something even more challenging loomed on the horizon. Something that would test his limits in a far more deadly way. The Caspian tigers, known for their immense strength and agility, were considered some of the most powerful beasts to ever step foot in Roman arenas. And unlike the bears and bulls, these felines were not only brutal in strength, but incredibly astute and strategic in combat. For the Romans, a tiger victorious in battle was not just a victory, but a display of predatory skill that impressed even the most experienced gladiators. The first tiger that faced Magnus was a colossal beast, with sharp claws and eyes burning with the ferocity of its species. At first, it seemed that the battle would be a difficult task, even for the mighty lion. The tiger attacked relentlessly, its claws slicing through the air with incredible speed. But Magnus, as always, reacted with unexpected strength. He charged forward, his mane flowing in the wind, and delivered a lethal strike, hitting the tiger's jugular. The crowd was in ecstasy as the animal fell, defeated by Magnus's sheer force. After the impressive victory over the first tiger, Magnus remained the star of the Coliseum. His name echoed through the streets of Rome, and rumors about his strength spread throughout the empire. He had already defeated bears, bulls, and even a tiger, something many believed impossible. But the greatest challenge was still to come. When the second tiger entered the arena, the tension was palpable. The crowd knew this animal would be even harder to defeat. The Caspian tigers were known for their strength and agility, and this one was no different. The battle began furiously. Magnus, still immense and imposing, attacked with the fury of a king. But unlike the first tiger, this feline was faster, more agile, and did not give the lion room to dominate quickly. The battle was brutal and lasted much longer than expected. Magnus, though still powerful, was showing signs of wear. The first tiger had left its marks, and the battle wounds began to weigh heavily. However, Magnus was not one to give up. With almost superhuman strength, he managed to land a fatal blow on the tiger, and the animal fell defeated to the surprise of all. The crowd erupted in applause, but soon admiration turned to concern. Magnus was exhausted, and the wound on his right leg, still recent, seemed to be worsening. Though victorious, the lion was now clearly slower. His breathing was labored, and he staggered as he walked. It was evident that the battle with the second tiger had taken a heavy toll. Magnus the Invincible now seemed a shadow of the predator who had once ruled the arena. However, the Romans, eager for more spectacle, were not willing to let the legend of Magnus fade so easily. It was then that, sometime later, a new threat was brought in to face the great lion. But this time, the opponents were not tigers. They were hyenas. An unexpected challenge, but to most, it seemed like yet another easy fight for Magnus. The hyenas, though smart and quick, lacked the strength of the tigers or bears. When they were unleashed into the arena, the audience expected a swift and unquestionable victory for the lion. But even as the hyenas attacked aggressively, Magnus, weakened by the injuries from his previous battles, still managed to defeat them one by one. The battle lasted longer than expected, as the hyenas proved more difficult to capture than it appeared. However, Magnus's willpower was tireless. He killed all the hyenas with precise and lethal strikes, but his appearance was very different from before. His movements were slower, and he appeared breathless after each strike, a shadow of the invincible lion who had once captivated everyone in the beginning. When the last animal fell, the entire arena fell silent, watching the lion imposing but weakened. The fight against the hyenas had been victorious, but it also showed a darker side of reality. The great Magnus, already wounded and tired, was no longer the unbeatable predator who defied everything and everyone. His movements, once agile and powerful, now seemed heavy. The Romans began to fear that the legend of Magnus, though still victorious, was nearing its end. After his victory over the hyenas, Magnus was taken to the resting area for gladiators, and the empire prepared for the next grand event at the Coliseum. But no one knew that within the lion's body, the battle had already been lost. His wounds, the same ones that had made him vulnerable against the second tiger, had become more severe over time. He had resisted everything, but the price of his battles was about to be paid. The final battle, the fight against the third tiger. As time passed, Magnus no longer had the same presence as before. His body, once imposing and muscular, was now marked with the scars of battle. The wounds he had suffered in the second battle with the tiger were deeper than originally thought. His movements, though still showing great courage and unwavering strength, were slower, more calculated, as if every step came with a price to pay. The Coliseum was about to witness his final great battle. But before it, the anticipation of the Roman crowd reached its peak. Rumors were circulating. The third tiger was even fiercer, more deadly. But no one, not even the most experienced gladiators, knew how much this battle would mean for Magnus. He had defeated the strongest, but the tiger he would face now would not be easy. The atmosphere in the arena was heavy. When the third tiger entered, the spectators held their breath. The animal was immense, its eyes fixed on Magnus, who, even weakened, stood tall in the arena with the fierce look of a warrior who was not ready to surrender. He had survived the bears, the bulls, the hyenas, and 2 tigers. But this one would be different. He knew it. The battle began with the intensity of a storm. Magnus, despite signs of weakness, charged forward with strength, facing the tiger with relentless ferocity. The fight was brutal, and the roar of the animals echoed through the walls of the Coliseum, making the crowd shout and cheer in ecstasy. But the lion was visibly slower. His movements lacked the same speed, and his body, already wounded and fatigued, didn't respond with the same effectiveness. Each strike from Magnus seemed heavier, laden with the pain of previous battles. The tiger, on the other hand, was at the peak of his strength and agility. He attacked with relentless precision, slashing Magnus with his sharp claws, deeply cutting into his skin and causing blood to spill. Magnus, however, resisted, fighting with the ferocity of a warrior who knew this would be his last battle. The audience watched in silence, a mixture of admiration and fear in their eyes. It was a battle of titans, but the signs that the great lion was about to succumb were becoming clear. After several minutes of fierce fighting, Magnus managed to land a fatal blow on the tiger, striking his throat and causing the beast to stumble backward. But the tiger, before falling, seized his last opportunity. With a fierce strike, he drove his claws into Magnus' flank, reaching deep into the old wounds, making the lion roar in pain. Blood poured out, and Magnus, now completely exhausted and weakened, dropped to his knees. But his bravery wouldn't allow him to surrender without fighting until the very end. The fight continued for a few more moments, but time was running out for Magnus. His body, in its final display of courage, was fighting against the inevitable. He rose once more, trying to strike at the tiger, but his movements were slow and uncoordinated. The third tiger, taking advantage of the lion's weakness, attacked with a final blow. Magnus, with the last strength he had, tried to dodge, but it was too late. The tiger struck him with a fatal claw, piercing his chest, and Magnus fell to the ground of the arena, finally succumbing to the weight of his battles. The arena was in absolute silence. The great lion, Magnus, the unbeatable, the indomitable, had fallen, but not without leaving a legacy. His fight, his courage, and his ability to overcome impossible foes made him a legend among the Romans. Even in death, he was remembered as the lion who defied the gods, who won even when it seemed impossible. And so, Magnus became an eternal figure in history, a reminder that even the strongest may fall, but never without fighting to the last breath. The immortal legacy of Magnus. Magnus' battle with the third tiger was the climax of his journey in the Coliseum. His body was already broken, marked by the battles that had turned him into a true legend. But his fight was not in vain. It was immortalized in the hearts of those who watched him, in those who sang his praises, and in the stories that survived the passage of time. After his death, the name of Magnus echoed in Rome, not just as the lion who defied expectations, but as a symbol of strength, courage, and resilience. In the most respected historical accounts, such as those of the historian Martial, the lion's fight was highlighted as one of the greatest displays of bravery the Coliseum had ever witnessed. Martial, who wrote about many of the battles and spectacles that took place there, reported that the lion, though already wounded, had the power to turn the tide. He defied the odds, won under circumstances that were simply unthinkable, and even in his last battle, showed what it truly meant to be unbeatable, not by physical strength, but by willpower and an indomitable spirit. For many, Magnus' victories over the first and second tigers were an inexplicable feat. The historian Martial clearly stated that the tiger was, more often than not, the natural victor against any opponent. The tiger, with its agility and power, was considered a superior predator. But Magnus showed that courage, instinct, and endurance could surpass even the logic and science of combat. The story of Magnus is not just a tale of raw strength. It is a symbol of resistance, of fighting against inevitability, and of courage in the face of the impossible. In a time where the fate of animals like the lion was decided by the will of men, Magnus became a hero. His final battle against that third tiger, though fatal, demonstrated the true essence of what it meant to be a gladiator in the arena. The fight for honor, for prestige, and for one last proof of his invincibility. The legends about the fallen lion were passed down through generations, and his image fused with the very spirit of the Coliseum. The place where he lost his life, an arena of blood and glory, became a symbol of sacrifice and courage. Magnus was not just a lion who faced formidable foes. He was one of the greatest symbols of resistance the Roman Empire ever knew. After his death, many continued to speak of him. The generations that followed began telling stories of his bravery as a reminder that even in the face of death, true courage is immortal. Those who had seen Magnus in action held in their memories a being of unquestionable strength, whose bravery could only be compared to the greatness of gods and mythical heroes. Magnus was, without a doubt, a landmark in the history of the Coliseum's battles. He didn't just defy fate, but inspired the Romans to view the spirit of battle in a different light, not as a simple victory or defeat, but as a representation of the human and animal spirit that never bends before adversity. Although he succumbed in his final battle, Magnus lived on eternally in the words of the chroniclers, in the memories of those who saw him fight, and in the generations of Romans who grew up hearing about the great lion who faced the tigers, the bears, and the bulls, always showing a bravery that humans could only dream of achieving. And so, the memory of Magnus remains alive, not only as a symbol of physical strength, but as an emblem of courage, resilience, and the eternal struggle against life's odds. The Coliseum, where he fell, still resonates with the echo of his story. And as the arena of life continues, the legend of Magnus, the lion who defied the gods, will never be forgotten. So what did you think of this story? This story is inspired by a minority, according to the most reliable accounts of lions' victories over tigers. Do you have any suggestions or other questions? Comment below. And don't forget to subscribe.